1, 2. Now we're on. Stephen Ruderman here with now friend of the show, joining me for the third time, Dale Scott. Chief, how are you?
I'm good. Stephen, how you doing? I know that you're probably having a great summer so far with those Giants, right?
Giants are doing fantastic. Unexpected dream of the season. Gotta love it. I wanted to bring you on here to discuss a few things. I feel like the umpires, well, it's obvious the umpires have been getting an unfair rep for years, but this year especially, the umpires have been under a lot of scrutiny that I think is very unfair. And, guys, you'll see have a Joe Wester and Angel Hernandez behind the plate because they have a reputation. Oh, Angel's having a bad night. Angel Hernandez was behind the plate for Giants Dodgers a few weeks back, and he was having a terrible night. Score came out the next day. I think he was like 95 or 96, which is above the average. How do you think umpires are being treated right now? And I'll just ask that. How do you think umpires are being treated?
Well, I don't remember if we discussed this or not last time or last couple times, whatever. But since I'm on here so much, I can't remember. But here's what happens a lot with officials in general, and certainly in baseball for sure, with umpires. You can get a label. Maybe you in a high profile game have a couple misses or something, key misses, and get labeled as just a bad umpire. He's terrible, this and that, and that starts a trend to spotlight anything that might be a miss or anything that is even questionable. If it's that umpire, see, it's all he's terrible. He's always terrible. He's always missing calls. Once you're labeled, and it can happen the other way too. You can get a good label. Good or bad label. Once you're labeled, it takes a long time to shake it. Maybe the label was accurate for one game or for if you're spotlighting certain calls, but it could oftentimes season after season after season be a label that really doesn't pertain anymore. But that's what's been put on this guy's back, a certain guy's back, and so anytime anything's questionable, it's obvious. Oh, see, I knew that would happen with this guy. It always happens. And if he nails something, it's usually, well, that's a rarity. That hard, I mean, I guess if you guess, you're going to get it right once in a while. I mean, that's the type of mentality that just goes into it. It's already biased before even evaluating. Like you said, Angel had a 95 or something. Angel consistently for this season, all of his combined plate jobs, he's consistently in the last several years that I was privy to some of this stuff, was above 95, 96%. I mean, he's been consistently one of the better and more consistent plate umpires in Major League Baseball. You wouldn't know that from the coverage and from the Twitter and from the comments that are made about Angel, because that one miss, if he does have one, is blown up as typical for him. And then a 95 or 96, you don't see it blow up saying Angel had a 95 or 96. Yeah, I mean, it just doesn't work that way. So the question is, are they getting beat up? Well, that is kind of like ocean tides. It comes and goes. I mean, there are certain years or certain times during the year. Sometimes some seasons are better than others. And when I say better, I mean some seasons are less criticized than others. The key is to look at, as far as I'm concerned, it's to look at a body of work. You can pick out calls I missed. I mean, if you could set up a YouTube reel of through my career and missed pitches or missed calls, a 5-minute reel, you would think I was the worst umpire ever walked on the face of the earth, But again, that's perception of what you're being fed, so to speak. But when you look at a complete body of work, and throughout an entire season, even if you wanted throughout the entire game, depending on how you want to do this. For example, Don Denkinger, fantastic umpire. His resume is unbelievable. Had the plate in the Bucky Dent one-game playoff at Fenway. Was always consistently working big games in the American League, because he was there before they combined. What's he remembered for? One call. He's remembered for one call in the '85 World Series that he missed, and it was unfortunate. And he feels worse than anybody else. He feels worse than any St. Louis fan out there that he missed it, because it was an unfortunate miss. But is that Don Deckinger's career? Was that call? I mean, that's just not fair. So, there are certain guys on the Major League Baseball umpire roster right now, Angel being one of them, that is consistently, the first time you get a missed pitch, or it doesn't have to be a miss, just a questionable pitch or play, they're going to just bury him. CB Buckner's another one that they just love to bury. Now, for example, we just had, I think it was Sunday, that play in Pittsburgh with the Mets. I don't know if you saw that, but
incredible job there, both with the call and the ejection.
Exactly, and I just happened to read some of the Twitter feed from Mets fans. That's terrible. That's a foul ball. How? There's no way that can be fair. The ball hit foul right off the bat. So it's got to be foul. Well, first of all, that's not the rule. The rule, obviously you don't know the rule. Second of all, from the camera angle we had, which was pretty accurate, it wasn't exactly on the line, but it was damn close. That ball's fair. That's a fair ball. Okay. It was foul all the way up to it, basically. But once that was touched, that's when it matters, is when it's touched between the plate and either first or third. That's when it matters. It can be foul for 89 feet and 11 inches, but that last inch, if it touches the base or is touched over the foul line, it's a fair ball. And so that's the rule. And he made an outstanding call on that. But do we see a blow up of what a great call? But no, because, and again, I'm not listen, I understand how this works, right? I've been there. I understand, but questionable calls are going to get buried and you're going to get a lot of press for it. And some great, just stand up, unbelievably tough, good call. Yeah, you might get a mention here or something, but it's not nearly the ratio of coverage. So I get it. That's how it works. But sometimes it is a little frustrating on our end when those things happen.
Replay is
one more thing I want to add to that. A miss or a controversial call, that same play we just talked about, fair ball. Let's say nobody was on base and the guy ends up at first. Not nearly the controversy, but there was a bases loaded, 2 outs, 3 runs score, partially because he didn't go after the ball or whatever. But the point I'm trying to make is it's a situational thing too. If I miss a play at first base in the bottom of the second of a no score game in April, okay. I missed that same play in the bottom of the ninth with the tying run or something. It's huge, and it's a situational thing that sometimes could really come out and bite us too.
Well, isn't Angel Hernandez's reputation from that football player who he ejected, when what was his name, McMahon, did the something stretch? He's like, I have some stinks without a home plate umpire. Hernandez threw about. Isn't that what his bad reputation's from?
Well, I'm sure it doesn't help his reputation, but that's a cheap shot. I mean, that's and it's within his rights to do that. So certainly you don't want to be looking for fans or broadcasters or something to be thrown out. But look what Joe West did in the COVID game with the GM. Exactly, it was awesome because that's so unprofessional. And Mr. Rizzo as a GM for Washington, if he has a real problem with Joe West or any umpire in the staff, he knows who to contact and the proper way to file those issues. It's not to walk out and scream in a fanless stadium so everybody can hear. That's not the way to do things. And he got ejected, and he should have been.
And Rizzo, I think, has had, I know some guys are going to have reputations amongst umpires. Rizzo had a couple of incidents with umpires, I think Cuzzy and Jim Joyce. So, I mean, there's, are there going to be some guys where you're going to think, if this guy, I get it with Billy Martin, you guys did that, but I'm sure today's staff does. Are there guys with today's staff, like, if they say a word, we're running them, whether they're a player, coach, or guy off the field?
Not really, but we know who's got the long rap sheets and who doesn't, right?
Right.
If I call a strike or strike out a hitter that rarely says anything, I'm going to listen to him a little bit longer. Now, that doesn't mean that he can just carte blanche say whatever he wants. I mean, you have the automatics and all that stuff. But if it's somebody, I've used this example before, but Derek Jeter, who, by the way, was never ejected in his career, which is, that in itself is pretty amazing, really, for the long career that he had, and you know, so many innings he played. But you know, I called him out on strikes, and he looked back and he just said, "Dale, that ball's outside." And as he's kind of walking away, he's not throwing a fit, he's not screaming at me. He's just very professionally saying that he disagreed with the pitch. Nothing wrong with that. I said, Derek, I got it on the plate. He said, "No, I'm telling you, it's outside." I said, "I'll take a look after the game." You know, here's a guy that hardly. I'm not saying he never argued, but he's not a guy that bitches all the time, right? So I'm gonna give him a little credence or whatever. That same team, O'Neill, Paul. Thank you. I should call him Todd. I don't know why. Paul O'Neill. If he had a comment about when I worked the plate with Paul, at least once, but usually more than once, during his at bat, he would, if I called a strike, he would have a comment about it. He just bitches all the time. That's what he does, you know. So now, again, he did it. He didn't necessarily go scream and go crazy and stuff. I've never ejected him, but that's a guy that you just, you know, it's like the guy crying wolf. After a while, you go, yeah, I know, Paul. Yeah, I know. I didn't get the memo that if you don't swing, it's a ball. I didn't understand that. Next time I'll be better at that. Look at a guy like, I had issues with. For example, George Bell back with Toronto, or Tony Phillips, who played with the Tigers and the A's, and I ejected both those guys 2 or 3 times, maybe 4 times in my career. I know his rap sheet. He has an even slate every game, but I'm not going to have a long fuse with this guy. I mean, because I know how he is. That's just what he does, and so I'm going to probably take less from him than I would from somebody that rarely questions.
Angel Pagan too was another one of those guys. Did you ever have Angel have words with you?
I'm sure he did if we were on the baseball field. I actually don't remember. I remember us having disagreements. Yes. I don't remember anything explosive with him. No.
Right. But I know Angel would always argue with a bunch of umpires, and that was his reputation. A lot of the scrutiny is coming from replay. And with replay, I don't like how the system works. I don't like how, I like how they review it, and I like all the camera work, but I don't like how teams can pause the game for 20 to 30 seconds and call a guy on the bench, call a guy in the close, and say, "Hey, I think we should challenge this." Do you feel like this should be like an on the spot thing where it's like no wasting time? You got to use gut instinct. And do you think maybe there should be a time limit on it as well?
It's an interesting thought. I mean, I think there should be more discussion about it. Maybe if you have to do an instant challenge, maybe you get more than one challenge or something. You know what I mean? But you don't have the luxury of waiting and getting the ups or down, from whatever. A lot. I think that was built into that because you only do get a limited amount of challenges or whatever during a game, and so they wanted to give, the manager and the team a fair shot of having some idea about the call. That being said, a lot of people are like you are just saying that philosophy of, hey, you saw it in real time and you're vehemently against the call. Well, then challenge it, and instead of this, waiting and this and that, and then maybe you get 3 challenges a game or something. I don't know. But you don't get that time frame. I think it's worth a debate and a discussion in the off season to see if maybe that would be. And knowing baseball, they may. Well, I don't know if they have a replay in the minor leagues or in these leagues that they're using for for these experimental rules. But if they had a chance of doing, or maybe in the fall league, they might have a chance to have that philosophy and see how it plays out. I don't know.
Other thing, with replay, some people have the idea of, well, maybe we shouldn't tell the umpire what the original call is, but that would be pretty hard to do, wouldn't it? Because some people are saying, oh, there's biases and some umpires don't want to overturn people's calls. Is there some truth to that? And do you really think you don't think it's doable to be able to not tell them what the original call was?
No, that's not that's not doable. And I've sat in replay before, many times before I retired. One of the thoughts umpires have, if we have to go with 3 or 4 angles, or it is so close and we're trying to decipher a grass blade here and taking all this time. Well, if there's no set time, but it's just a philosophy of it's taken this much time and we really still don't have a definitive thing. It's got to stand. It just has to stand, because it's, but there's not a bias. I mean, I think umpires are looking at replay. The call was out. Prove to me it's safe. Okay. Prove to me to overturn this call. Otherwise the call is out. I mean, that's what the call on the field was. So, and I have to have definitive, evidence to change it. So prove to me that call on the field was wrong. And if you can't, with the pertinent camera angles on a particular play or whatever, if you just can't, you got to remember, Stephen, and a lot of fans look at this. Well, he, there's he must have done. Well, it's almost like you're projecting. Like, well, it looks like there's no way he couldn't. You've seen some plays like it's a tag play at second or something, and the real good camera angle that would really be the one that shows you one way or the other, there's a player in the way, or the umpire's in the way, or whatever the situation might be. But it's one of those things like, well, I think he's probably out, but he called him safe, and I don't have the replay. I don't have the video to prove that he's wrong, right? I would have if this one angle had opened up, but it didn't. So I can't guess. I can't just say, well, it looks like, it looks like it might be, it's got to be definite. And if you don't have definite, it's not going to go. And now I know as a fan, a Duck fan here, when I'm watching it, I think, oh man, I think he caught that, but I think he caught it or he caught it. Okay. And that's the difference. And I want him to catch it, but did he catch it? Not, I think he did, or boy, it looks like he probably did. Well, yeah, it probably doesn't help. That's not how it's written up.
Hey, Dale, listen, well, not right now, but I'm high. I'm watching the game on TV. I'm sitting back in the couch. If I see the guy is out, he's out. Anyway.
What I'm saying, the replay is not the definitive answer. Sometimes, even with replay, you cannot tell. Right? Exactly. I mean, one angle. I remember that, I had that play in the 99. Of course, we didn't have replay, but I had the play at first in the 9th inning on Garcia Parra on the 99 LCS in Fenway, that's deciding game 5 against the Yankees. And one replay showed I was right with the out call. The other replay looked like it was. I mean, that's how close it was. I ended up, having the ejection, and we had nice fun time there at Fenway that night. But the bottom line was, if we did have replay, it would have been a stance because there was nothing definitive that said one way or the other. But replay, a lot of people thought, oh, we have replay. Well, there'll never be a missed call again. Because if there is a missed call in the field, replay will take care of it. Well, no, not necessarily, because sometimes you still with replay cannot tell.
Speaking of replay, there's also the electronic strike zone, which I pray to the God I don't believe in. Never finds its way into Major League Baseball. It's been having some problems. What's your view on the automated strike zone? And do you think a lot of these veteran guys who have been calling balls and strikes for years, because I feel like calling balls and strikes is like a sacred thing for umpires. Do you think they're going to take kindly to this?
Well, I know if I was still working and we went to that, I wouldn't take kindly with it. And I also think it's a kind of an unfair burden to put a plate guy back there to be ready to call every pitch but not call it, waiting for the earpiece. But then all of a sudden the earpiece says, "Oh, we missed that one. Call it." Oh, okay. Now you want me to call it? I mean, that's just. But that aside, the evaluation system we have now for balls and strikes cleaned up what was a problem in the early 2000s, which had over time gotten worse and worse. Is that the plate was much wider. We were calling strikes much wider, much lower on the top end, and on the bottom end, a little bit, very close, but a little bit up more than it is now. Now it's a little bit lower, but that's very close. But we were really wide, and we called almost nothing above the belt, or just above the belt. And that's not the strike zone, but that's what it evolved into. So baseball said, listen, we want the rule book strike zone, and they redefined the strike zone of the rule book. They said the midpoint between the shoulders and the the waist of the pants. So that's up in here somewhere. That's the midpoint, which was definitely higher than what we were calling. And the ball's got to be on the plate. Okay, and so that was the one. I mean, we were literally calling pitches this far off, and that was normal on the outside. I mean, that was what we did day in and day out. The hitters, the pitchers, everybody knew it. So we had that transition period when we had Questec at the time was the name, and that was in 2003, I believe, which was I may have that year wrong, but it was a transition for everybody, for pitchers, for hitters, for umpires, for media, fans, and that first probably half of that season, certainly the first couple months of that season, there was a lot of bitching, a lot of bitching because we, pitchers that were used to getting pitches that were off the plate weren't getting those anymore. Hitters that weren't used to a pitch being, above the waistline, basically. Now they're strikes. They're going at, they weren't getting it. Everybody was a little bit pissed off, which meant we were probably doing our job. But it was adjustment for us also. I'd been calling balls and strikes for years and years, and all of a sudden now, I had to understand that this pitch that I've been calling a strike for the last 10, 15 years plus or whatever, I now have to, that's not a strike. This one is a strike. So there's adjustment for everybody, but we got it down to basically what the rule book says now. That's where the strike zone is. Now, of course, you have little variances in this and that because it's a three-dimensional zone, area with a ball that's doing all kinds of funky stuff, and you have the high-low is determined when the hitter's attempting or about to, address the ball. I mean, there's a lot of variables going on in a very short and quick amount of time. So there will be some variables. Now you throw in a computer. Now you throw in an automated zone. And it's got to be able to, granted, the width of the plate is always the same. Remember, if any part of the ball is over the plate, the ball's 2.25 inches circumference, whatever. So that 17-inch plate suddenly is, a couple inches on this end, because, if any part of the ball. So now that's a 21-inch plate, give or take. But the high-low changes with each hitter, changes within an at-bat with each hitter. Now, a guy trying to swing through has a different high-low than if he's down to bunt, because of when he's attempting to strike at or address the baseball or the pitch. So I'm not sure if an automated zone can do that in real time, consistently and effectively. Prove me wrong. I bet I just don't. I mean, it's very tough for us to do. I mean, let's get let's be honest. But it's something that has to be done because that's how it works. The other thing is just, and I've said this time and time again, if any part of if any pitch enters any part of the strike zone, it's to be considered a strike. And if you have a pitch that is at the very front edge of the plate on the very outside corner that is going away from the hitter and down, and a catcher catches it 3 inches above the ground, about 4 inches outside, that's a strike. By rule, that's a strike. We won't call it a strike because that's part of the art of umpiring. We understand, this is the rule, but let's apply the rule to what we're doing. No one expects that to be a strike. Pitchers love it, but nobody expects it to be a strike, right? But the computer or the automated zone doesn't have, it's programmed to any part of the ball, hits any part of the strike zone, that's a strike. And so those are adjustments that would have to be made. If everybody's okay with that, fine. Go at it. But I have a real hard time thinking that a game that is played by humans that make mistakes and officiated by humans that make mistakes, but you want it officiated by humans or machines or a combination of some of that, and never, ever, ever have any, and in a perfect world, no play is missed, no pitch is missed. But, a shortstop screws up a bases loaded double play ball to get him out of the inning. And I don't say after further review, he usually makes that play. We're going to give him 2 outs. Of course not. Of course not. He made a mistake, and you move on.
It's the human element. I just feel like,
right.
With this transition to everything going on machines now, and it's also social media, people being on their phones, but having automated robots do things like this, it's so inauthentic. And I feel like that's a problem in our world is people need to be more authentic. And I'm
Well, it's a video game.
yeah. And I don't want to turn baseball into an early 2000s video game. At least with MLB The Show, they'll have umpires miss calls. And that's the human part of the game. You appreciate it. And umpire ejections are fun. I love watching two guys scream at each other. It's fun. It's great. But do you think this is actually going to happen with the automated zone, or do you think they'll be able to find a way not to implement it?
Well, I think they're gonna certainly do everything they can to try to make it happen. Will it actually make it to the major league level? I don't know. You know, they've had some issues with it, and I personally I hope not. But will it actually make it? I don't know.
Let's hope not. Another one of the recent changes is they're getting rid of all sticky substances. Nothing, you can't do anything to doctor the ball now. Sorry, Eddie Harris. If you ever watch Major League. Hey, you got a little jalapeno up the nose. You got it. Rub it. And if you that line.
Right.
And now guys are checking. It's like every 2 innings, guys are being inspected. Do we really need to do this?
Well, apparently right now we do. From the umpire standpoint here, this is, and we've had this happen. The guys have had this happen is a relief pitcher comes in. He walks a couple guys and gives up a knock, and now they pull him, and now they got to frisk him on his way out. And he just gave up 4 runs or something, and and he's in a real good mood, and maybe he's pissed off at the plate umpire for a couple of pitches that were called, and now we got to check him, and it's just you're setting up a little mini disaster right there. But it seems to, and the other thing that was an issue with this is it was this edict came down 2 months or whatever into the season, so that throws everybody off, right? This winter, with the CBA and stuff, who knows what's going to happen this winter, but rule wise it seems to me if you can get from the Players Association get a representative for them that represents the hitters and the pitchers. You have the representative from the umpires. Of course, you have MLB front office and all the attorneys and everything. But it seems like you can come up with some kind of a substance that everybody agrees with, that you can mix with rosin, or have have kind of like a rosin bag, have a little thing behind the mound that that's been approved. And this is the sticky substance that is approved by Major League Baseball that the pitchers can use. The hitters, the union signed off. And now anything else, if there's a questionable, spot on the glove or, whatever the case may be, that'll be taken care of appropriately. But it's kind of like the rosin bag. It's an approved thing and everybody can use it if they want to use it. And then let's, instead of, well, he uses sunscreen and this guy uses, this and then, I don't know, or this was just sweat and this. And it's like, okay, no, this is what we can do. The spin rates have dropped dramatically since this, this regulation came into effect. I don't know if batting averages have, changed or gotten better or worse or whatever. It's probably a too small of a sample size right now. Let's see how it plays out. But do we have to do this? I don't know. Will we have to continue to do this? I don't know. But it seems like during the off season, you can maybe be able to formulate something that's much smoother and not frisking every pitcher when he goes to the mound or coming off the mound.
Well, and it's like every team has guys who do it. I remember there was a story where George Steinbrenner always called in the dugouts to tell managers how to manage, and he told Piniella, like, hey, that guy on the other team is throwing junk, and Lou says, like, George, if we report on him, they're going to report the guys on our team who are doing it. It's like every team has guys who are doing it. You see, right. Craig Kimbrell's got that brown spot on his bill. It's obvious. And so I just feel like, for my opinion, I'm very opinionated. Let's just let the guys have fun. Now, speaking of this stuff, you were the crew chief back in 2005, in June of that year in Anaheim. Sosha versus Frank Robinson, two very old school guys. What was that one like? I mean, I forget like who reported first, but I mean, that must have been a mess.
I'm trying to remember the player that was with the Angels the year before. Yes, and now it was with Montreal, was it Washington now? I guess where they were Washington. But anyway, was and he had a big to do with Socha and the Angels, and they put him, suspended him the last several weeks of the previous season, and obviously a lot of bad blood. So when they met in that interleague game in Anaheim, he told Frank Robinson, hey, this reliever or this pitcher, he has this stuff on, this, he always throwing blah, blah, blah. So Frank was loaded with this information. So when he came in the game, here comes Frank. I want you to check. And he goes, I want you to check. It's right here on his glove. Blah, blah, blah. I mean, it was like, I know exactly where it's at, and I know it. This is what it is. And that's what it was. We went and checked. There was this pine tar and a big old spot and this and that. And it was funny because Socha, Tim Cheeto had the plate, and we're looking at it, and Socha goes, oh, no problem, we'll just get a new glove. And he grabs the glove like he was just going to walk to the dugout and just get a new glove, and everything's all good. And we said, no, no, it doesn't work that way. We're confiscating the glove. He's ejected, and you need a new pitcher. And so it was, and he hadn't even thrown a pitch yet. He just warmed up. But anyway, that's what had happened. And then it turned into a shouting match between the managers where we were just innocent bystanders trying to keep order, and there's some pretty juicy words thrown around it. And I write about it in my upcoming book next year, so we throw that plug in. So, but it was that was one of those situations where Frank had inside knowledge, and he just waiting for the right time and used it when that pitcher came in, and he, like I said, a lot of times, hey, I think he's got something. I don't know. It might be on his belt. They suspect something, but they don't really know. This one was, I know exactly where it's at. It's right here. It's going to be a blob, and he had it down. So that was a very unique situation.
So we were going back to an earlier topic. I've always had this question. I don't know why I haven't asked you in the previous two interviews. Umpires, aren't liked by fans. I feel like, and maybe you might say, okay, this isn't going to work, but I feel like maybe some umpires should try being on social media, and that might help their image a little bit. A guy like Las Diaz, who has a really colorful personality, I feel like would be a good type to do it. Do you think umpires being on social media and interacting with fans would be a good?
Well, it might humanize guys, but not everybody has outgoing, fun personalities like myself and Las Diaz. We certainly can be or could be on social media when I was working, but MLB security cautioned us that and also I never was on social media until after I retired, and I think I'm pretty glad I wasn't, quite frankly, because for several reasons. But to answer the question, certainly when you humanize umpires, maybe not social media, but when you see umps care clips at these children's hospitals that umpires go to, and I was fortunate and grateful to be able to do that like 6 or 7 times, which really kind of brings home everything. What's important and what's not, but those types of things, and there's not those things help humanize umpires and give us a chance to show that we're just people that happen to do this job. We're not out to screw the Giants or the Dodgers or anybody else. We're just out to try to get pitches and plays right. And sometimes we mess up, but vast majority of times we don't. And so and that does humanize them. I'm not sure if the right answer would be, because we have there's a lot of guys in the staff that just aren't social media type guys. I mean, they're not they're pretty introverted as far as so what works for a Las Diaz certainly may not work for somebody else. So I'm not sure if that's the right answer. But I know I do understand what you're saying though, as far as trying to humanize and show that these guys really aren't the big boogeyman.
Yeah. Back to our social media savvy, you damn boomers. Well, actually, I don't think I have any more questions. I think I touched up on everything I wanted to touch up with you. Actually, let's talk about your book real quick, if you want.
Well, we're still several months away from being released. It's going to be released in May of next year. I just finished it and sent the manuscript in mid-May to the publisher, where we just settled on a title last week. The Umpire is out. calling the plays and living my true self is the name of the book. It's a University of Nebraska Press. I had a co-writer that helped me, Rob Nyer, who a longtime baseball writer for ESPN, Fox. He's written a few books, and he's, lucky for me, also lives in Portland, so we were able to coordinate right here in the Rose City. But it's a memoir about my life in baseball, and minor leagues on up, and some great stories and fun stories and that kind of stuff. But it's also unique to any other umpire book because I'm gay, and I came out after I'd been in baseball for 25 plus years. Although my peers, other umpires, the Major League Baseball who writes my checks, they all knew, but certainly teams and fans and the media didn't. But in the minor leagues, in my first 20 years, 15 years in the big leagues, I actively did everything I could to not be found out. One interesting thing, my first year in 1981, after umpire school, I worked in the Northwest League. My first game in the Northwest League in June was about 2 weeks after the very first news report about a mysterious illness that was affecting gay men. Of course, we're talking about HIV/AIDS and the huge epidemic that was in the 80s. That was another reason, like in the minor leagues, in my first few years in the big leagues, if somebody found out I was gay, there would have literally been umpires that would not work with me. There would be guys that would not be comfortable. If I picked up a bar of soap, that they would use that soap. I mean, I don't know if you remember the 80s and when this was starting out, people were scared to death because they didn't know what it was, and they were afraid you could catch it by all kinds of ways and stuff. So that, my career in professional baseball paralleled the beginning of that epidemic. And that was just another of many reasons why I was actively doing things to make sure nobody found out who I was. I was out at home. Don't get me wrong. I wasn't in the closet, but I was in the closet professionally and on the road as an umpire. But I cover all of that as well as my fun stories of umpiring. And, I'm not a writer. I've never written a book, obviously. This was a whole new experience for me. I've enjoyed it. It's been quite an education. We started when we had the deal with the University of Nebraska Press in October. So for a good 6 months or so, I was, doing this, and I'm looking forward when it comes out next spring.
Well, Dale, thank you very much for joining me, and maybe at some point later this year, do another interview.
Absolutely. And then when it's about time for the book to come out, I'll come and plug my book.
All right. So Dale Scott, MLB crew chief, 3 World Series. Should have been able to work more, but things happen. All right, Dale. Thanks for joining.
Thanks, Stephen.